It was just another morning. The sun rose lazily over the horizon, painting the roofs of sleeping houses in warm, gentle hues. The city was waking up to its familiar soundtrack, the hum of the first cars, the chirping of birds, the distant rumble of a train. For millions, this day promised to be just like the last, routine, predictable, safe. But for some, it would be their last. For others, it was the point of no return, the moment their world shattered, leaving behind nothing but a chilling silence and a cold, creeping dread. In the vast, impersonal phone book of the modern world, there is one number you dial when all hope is almost lost. 911. These aren't just digits. They are a lifeline, connecting to people whose job it is to listen to despair. People for whom every word, every breath, every pause in the conversation can alter a destiny. They are the unseen heroes, the first to enter the battle for a stranger's life when all other paths are closed. Today, we will tell you one of these stories. A story that began with a single phone call but spiraled into a desperate race against time, with the ultimate prize at stake. This is a story of rescue, filled with unexpected twists, heart-stopping moments, and incredible courage. A story where a team of rescuers stepped into the unknown, risking their own lives for someone they had never met. We will take you deep into the heart of the wilderness, a place where man is merely a guest, and the forest is the true master, setting its own unforgiving rules. This is a tale of how, in the deepest darkness, when all seems lost, a ray of hope can pierce through the dense canopy. It is proof that no life is ever forgotten, and that every desperate cry for help will always be answered. Prepare yourselves. Our story begins now. The silence of the emergency dispatch center is pierced by a sharp, demanding tone. Another call flashes on the screen. Sarah, an operator with years of experience and nerves of steel, answers the call, prepared for anything. But the voice she hears makes even her seasoned heart skip a beat. "Hello? Help me. My mom is lost. She can't walk, and I don't know what to do." The voice on the other end belongs to a young boy. It's cracking, trembling with fear and cold. Behind his words, the sound of wind and snapping twigs can be heard. His voice sounds so muffled and desperate. It's as if the forest itself has swallowed him, absorbing all sound and leaving only an echo of panic. Sarah instantly shifts into full focus mode. Her voice becomes a calm, steady anchor in a raging sea of a child's terror. "Stay calm, son. What's your name? What's your mother's name?" she begins, her fingers flying across the keyboard, logging the details. The first questions are always the most critical. What happened? Where are they? What are the symptoms? Every piece of information matters. Every second is golden. The boy, sobbing, says his name is Ethan. He's 10 years old. They went looking for mushrooms when his mom suddenly felt sick, fell, and now can't get up. He thinks her leg is hurt, and she's very, very cold. He tried to help her, but he wasn't strong enough. The connection crackles with static. The forest is already beginning to choke the signal. "Ethan, can you hear me? Try to describe what you see around you. Any landmarks? An old tree, a stream, a clearing?" While Sarah tries to coax any possible landmark from the terrified child, the information is already being relayed to the search and rescue unit. An alarm blares through the station. The shift commander, Mark, a veteran rescuer with graying temples, glances at a map. Forest area near Pine Creek Village. A child, female, suspected trauma, unable to move. His expression hardens. In this moment, everyone understands. If she can't move, the forest has swallowed her whole. Time is our enemy. A team of 4, Mark, the team medic David, a K-9 handler with his German Shepherd, Thunder, and a young but proven rescuer named Alex, assembles in minutes. They check their gear, radios, medical kits, thermal blankets. Every member knows their role. Within moments, the heavy-duty SAR all-terrain vehicle roars to life and peels out of the station, racing towards the highway, towards the unknown, towards a cry for help from the heart of the wild. The SAR vehicle turns off the paved highway onto a barely visible forest trail. The truck bounces over roots and ruts, its sides scraped by branches like the claws of an unseen beast. The forest greets them not as guests, but as intruders. This is not a scenic park for casual hikes. This is its underbelly, its shadow, a place where even the most experienced can become lost. Mark, at the wheel, peers into the wall of trees closing in behind them. The second we drove into this forest, I knew this wasn't going to be easy. The trees seemed to grow taller and taller, pressing in on us, creating a claustrophobic feeling. The air grew thicker, colder. The first problem arises almost immediately. The GPS navigator, meant to guide them to the last known location of the boys' phone signal, begins to fail. The arrow on the screen spins erratically, losing its satellite lock. The dense canopy of ancient pines and firs forms an impenetrable dome, blocking the signal from space. We have almost no signal, and GPS is shot. We're switching to old-school maps and compass, Mark commands. The team unfurls a paper map of the area, illuminating it with a flashlight. But that's only half the battle. The sky, which had been a dreary gray, begins to darken ominously. Heavy, lead-colored clouds roll in from the north, swallowing the last patches of light. Then, the first cold drops begin to tap against the truck's roof. Within minutes, the drizzle transforms into a full-blown autumn downpour. The rain doesn't just wet the ground, it reshapes the landscape. The forest trail, already treacherous, is rapidly turning into a viscous quagmire. The all-terrain vehicle's wheels spin, churning mud, the engine roaring with strain. At one point, the vehicle sinks and comes to a dead stop. We're on foot from here, Mark decides. There's no other choice. The rescuers don their waterproof gear, check their headlamps, and step out into the storm. The cold rain soaks them instantly. Visibility drops to just a few feet. A thick fog rises from the damp earth, mingling with the sheets of rain, creating a ghostly, surreal atmosphere. The ground underfoot is a slurry of mud and leaves. Every step is an effort, but the team doesn't stop. They know that even the most difficult moments are surmountable when they work as a single, cohesive unit. The handler unleashes thunder. The dog shakes himself off and immediately catches a scent, but the rain is a serious impediment, washing away smells and confusing tracks. Despite this, Thunder pulls forward confidently, deeper into the thicket. The rescuers follow, pushing through wet undergrowth, their faces set with determination. They know that for a mother and son, lost somewhere in this cold, wet hell, they are the only hope. And that hope must not be extinguished. An hour passes, then another. The hands on their watches move relentlessly, counting down the precious minutes. Day fades into an early autumn dusk, which, deep in the forest, is nearly indistinguishable from night. The rain ebbs and flows, sometimes letting up to a drizzle, then returning with renewed fury. The rescuers are soaked to the bone, but they continue to methodically sweep sector after sector. We were confident we'd find her soon. Thunder was on a scent, and it felt like we were closing in, recalls Alex, the youngest on the team. But the deeper we went, the more the forest transformed into something sinister. It felt like the trees themselves were conspiring against us, slowing our steps, grabbing at our clothes with their branches. Night finally throws its black blanket over the forest. Now, the only sources of light are the powerful beams from their headlamps. The lights snatch twisted silhouettes of trees, wet ferns, and glistening rocks from the darkness. Everything else is lost in an impenetrable gloom. In these conditions, it's easy to lose your bearings, to give in to panic. Mark radios their status back to base. The dispatcher suggests they turn back and resume the search at dawn. But he makes a decision. We're continuing the search. She has an injury and might not survive a night on the cold ground. We can't leave. The team supports his decision without hesitation. They know the risks. The darkness changes everything. Sounds are amplified. Shadows stretch into terrifying shapes. Every rustle of leaves makes them jump. You know, there are moments when you have no idea what lies ahead. And that's the most frightening thing of all, shares David, the medic. The beam of your flashlight carves out a tiny island of reality, and everything beyond it is just a vast, black unknown. You can't tell where you began or where you're going. You walk by feel, trusting only your compass and your dog. Suddenly, Thunder stops dead in his tracks, pulling the leash taut. He lets out a low growl, staring into the darkness. The rescuers freeze, switching off their lights and listening. Silence. Only the sound of raindrops drumming on their hoods. And then they hear it. Somewhere far off to their right, a distinct crack and snap of a breaking branch. The sound is too loud to be a small animal. It could be the person they're looking for. Quiet. Everyone hold. Mark whispers into his radio. They switch their lights back on, aiming the beams in that direction. But they see only a wall of trees and brush. Was that her? Or was the forest just playing tricks on their strained nerves, creating illusions and false hope? The team decides to change course and move toward the sound, heading directly into the heart of the darkness. Moving towards the sound, the rescuers emerge into a small clearing. Thunder again becomes agitated, sniffing the ground at the base of a massive, sprawling oak tree. Mark aims his flashlight beam down, and what he sees makes them all freeze. In the damp earth, among the fallen leaves, are tracks. But they aren't just simple boot prints. They are intermittent, smudged. One print is clear, but next to it is a long, dragging mark, as if a person was dragging their leg. She was here. Very recently, Mark states. The rain has barely touched them. But that's not all. Alex notices something else nearby. Carved into the bark of the oak, at about eye level, is a fresh scratch, almost like a symbol. 3 parallel lines, apparently made with a sharp rock. What is it? A coincidence? A message? The team begins to scan the area meticulously. And there, on a path leading deeper into the woods, they see something that is even more frightening than the dark night. It's a trail of the same tracks. They lead onward, but they become more and more chaotic. When we found that trail, I thought this was the end of the line, says Mark. There's no way someone in that condition, dragging a leg, could have made it this far. The tracks showed a desperate struggle for life. She was falling, getting up, and pushing forward. The team follows this trail, and every 50 to 100 meters, they find more strange signs. A small arrow made of twigs, pointing the way. A scrap of bright fabric, torn from a jacket and tied to a branch. These signs are both encouraging and deeply unsettling. On one hand, they suggest the woman is conscious and trying to help her searchers. She's a fighter. On the other hand, the signs feel odd, almost ritualistic. Alex discovers even more peculiar markers, as if someone, or something, was leaving this trail intentionally, as if an unseen force was pushing them further along a specific route. It was creepy, he admits. It felt like we weren't just following tracks, but a pre-laid path, as if someone was leading her, and in turn, leading us right to her. The forest stopped being just a forest. It became a labyrinth, built by some malevolent, or perhaps benevolent, will. This mystery adds a layer of psychological strain to their physical exhaustion. Who is leaving these signs? The woman herself? Or is there someone else out here in the woods? The thought sends a shiver down their spines, but it also compels them to move forward, faster. The trail marked by the strange signs leads the team into the wildest, most impassable part of the forest. A deadfall. Here, giant trees, uprooted by storms years ago, lie tangled together, forming a chaotic, treacherous obstacle course. The rescuers are forced to climb over slick, moss-covered trunks and crawl underneath them, risking being crushed at any moment. The rain has turned the moss into a slippery film, making every movement a test of balance and strength. It is here, as the team navigates the most dangerous part of this natural maze, that they come face to face with the true master of these woods. Thunder, Walking Point, suddenly freezes, the fur on his neck standing on end. He emits a deep, guttural growl, a sound the rescuers have never heard from him before. Mark signals for a halt. They all stand motionless, aiming their flashlight beams ahead. A few dozen yards away, standing atop a logjam of fallen trees, they see it. A massive brown bear. It has risen up on its hind legs, its powerful silhouette starkly outlined in their lights. The animal is agitated and clearly unhappy about the intruders in its territory. This is the moment the forest ceases to be just a dark and scary place and becomes a battleground filled with real, mortal threats. When I saw the light from our headlamps reflect in that bear's eyes, I knew this wasn't just a tough night anymore. This was a fight for our lives, Mark recalls. Everyone's heart plummets. Any sudden move could trigger an attack. Slowly, fluidly, Mark reaches for the flare gun on his hip. It's a last resort, but the lives of his entire team are on the line. He gives a quiet command. Slowly, no sudden moves, back away. Do not turn your back. The bear lets out a deafening roar that echoes through the night forest, a primal sound that freezes the blood in their veins. It drops back down to all fours, but thankfully, it doesn't charge. It just stands its ground, watching them, making it clear who is in charge. This unexpected encounter forces the rescuers to be even more resolute and cautious. They give the area a wide berth, making a long detour and losing precious time. But now they know they must not only find the lost, but also constantly defend themselves from a forest that seems to have turned against them, throwing one deadly obstacle after another in their path. After detouring around the bear's territory, the team finds the trail again. Thunder, having calmed down, leads them on with renewed purpose. The immediate tension eases, but exhaustion is setting in. They have been on the move for hours without rest. Suddenly, the K-9 handler stops them. "Do you hear that?" he whispers. They all go still, listening. Through the constant patter of the rain, they can just make out a faint, weak sound. It isn't a shout, but a low moan. "We're close. We knew we were right on top of them," says David. Adrenaline surges through them again, granting them a second wind. They pick up the pace, almost running, calling out into the darkness. "Hello? Is anyone there?" "Search and rescue." A voice answers. Another moan, louder this time. The sound is coming from a deep, overgrown ravine. The rescuers begin their descent down the slippery slope. And there, in the beams of their flashlights, they see her. A woman is lying at the bottom of the ravine, slumped against the trunk of a tree. Next to her sits her little boy, Ethan, hugging her, trying to warm her with his own small body. He isn't crying. He just stares up at the rescuers, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and overwhelming relief. But the moment David, the medic, reaches the woman, the true gravity of the situation hits them like a physical blow. She is conscious, but just barely. Her lips are blue, her body shaking with violent shivers. She had become disoriented, stumbled, and fallen into the ravine, badly injuring her ankle. But the most terrifying part was her confusion. She couldn't remember how she got there or how much time had passed. She was showing clear signs of severe hypothermia and a possible concussion. Her body temperature was dangerously low. Her life was fading with every passing minute. David immediately begins emergency medical care. He cuts away her wet clothes, wraps her in a thermal blanket, and gives her warm, sweet tea from his thermos. Alex and Mark prepare the stretcher. They have to move fast. But the rescuers don't just stop at the basics. They understand that every single action is a step towards saving her. You can't just walk away after doing the minimum, Mark explains later. You see a person whose life is hanging by a thread, and you know you have to do absolutely everything in your power to save her. There's no time for doubt and no room for error. The boy, Ethan, tells them that his mom was the one leaving the signs as long as she could walk, hoping someone would find them. She had fought for both their lives until the very end. The extraction is the most perilous phase of the entire operation. It's one thing to find a person, but it's another thing entirely to carry them out of an impassable wilderness, especially at night, in the rain, over treacherous terrain. They carefully place the woman onto the stretcher, securing her and her injured leg. The team's total weight has now increased by that of an adult, and every step up the slick slope of the ravine is a risk. The forest seems to breathe down their necks. The paths feel narrower. The tree roots seem to reach out to trip them. But the rescuers draw on all their skill and experience. They move as one, a single, coordinated machine. Two carry the front of the stretcher, two carry the back. They secure each other, relaying commands in hushed tones, moving slowly but steadily. "We knew we had to work as one unit," says Alex. "There was no room for individualism out here. Everyone depended on everyone else. There was no room for error. One wrong move, and we all could have ended up at the bottom of that ravine." They conquer the ascent, then the deadfall, which now seems even more formidable. They risk their safety with every step, but the thought of the life they have saved gives them strength. They can already picture handing her over to the paramedics, seeing the tears of joy on her son's face. They are almost there. But then, something happens that no one could have possibly expected. As the team reaches a relatively flat trail, the same one where they first found the tracks, Mark, walking point, stops abruptly. He aims his flashlight at the ground. Hold up, look at this. Next to the familiar tracks of the woman and child, there is another print. It's different. It's the deep impression of a heavy man's boot, crystal clear and made very recently. And this track leads not from where they came, but in the opposite direction, deeper into the forest. The rescuers can't believe their eyes. They had been certain that no one else was in this sector. Two people, lost in the same forest, in almost the same spot. Was this a coincidence or some cruel twist of fate? In that moment, they realized that the strange, almost ritualistic signs they had been following might not have been left by the woman alone. Trapped in the forest, she wasn't alone, and whoever else was out there might still be in the darkness. The discovery presents Mark with an impossible choice. He cannot abandon the woman, who needs immediate hospitalization, but he also cannot ignore the fact that there might be another person in the forest, possibly injured or disoriented. He gets on the radio, reports the situation to base. The decision is made instantly. Mark and Alex will continue the evacuation of the woman and child to the vehicle, while David and the K-9 handler, with Thunder, will follow the new trail. The team splits up. The risk doubles, but there is no other option. David and the handler set off on the new track. Thunder, catching the fresh scent, pulls eagerly at the leash. The tracks lead them deeper into the woods, towards an old, abandoned ranger station. A dilapidated cabin stands in the middle of a clearing, its dark windows like hollow eye sockets. Their hearts pound with anticipation. Who could be in there? With maximum caution, they approach the cabin. The door is ajar. David peers inside and sees a man sitting on the floor. He's conscious, but severely weakened. It turns out he's a local who went into the woods days ago and got lost. His phone had died, and his food and water had run out. It was he who had stumbled upon the woman and child after they had fallen into the ravine. He was too weak to pull them out, but he left signs on the trees, trying to attract attention, and periodically snapped branches to make noise, hoping someone would hear them. He had been their unseen guardian angel. 2 people in the forest and 2 rescues. An unbelievable turn of events. But this was not just a coincidence. It was the result of a team that refused to give up. It was the result of the courage of a mother fighting for her son and the compassion of another lost soul who, while in peril himself, tried to help others. In that moment, we understood. No obstacle could stop us, says Mark, as he finally drives the SAR vehicle back towards the highway where an ambulance is waiting. We saved them both. And the boy. It was our duty, and it was our job. But that day, we didn't just save lives. We saved our faith that even in the most absolute darkness, a human being can still be a human being. By the time the dawn painted the sky in soft shades of pink, all the players in this nighttime drama were safe. The woman and the man were taken to the hospital, their lives no longer in danger. Little Ethan, wrapped in a warm blanket in the back of the rescue vehicle, had finally fallen asleep, exhausted but unharmed. And the rescue team, tired, covered in mud, but filled with a profound sense of accomplishment, began their journey back to the station. For them, this was just another call, another life saved in a career of hundreds. But for those they pulled from the cold embrace of the night forest, this day was a second birthday. A rescue in the wilderness is not just a fight against nature, against the rain, the cold, and the wild animals. It is, above all, a fight with oneself, against exhaustion, against fear, against despair. It is a test of spirit that only the strongest can endure. Every call to 911 is not just a report of a disaster. It is a chance for salvation, a cry for help that travels across miles to be heard. Today, we have told you just one story. A story where time, chance, and nature itself played their sinister roles, but in the end, life was victorious. Courage, professionalism, and simple human compassion won the day. This isn't just a story. It is the reality faced every single day by those who stand guard over our lives. Remember them the next time you see a rescue vehicle speeding past. Behind its windows are not just people in uniform. They are the heroes of our time, ready at a moment's notice to step into the unknown for you and me.